So now that we have gone through steps 1 through 5 of setting up your gradebook, we're going to pause and talk about how to score assignments for low incidence students before we actually create them in Power Teacher Pro Gradebook. As a reminder, the steps that you have gone through in traditional grade calculations and categories should be done at the beginning of the school year, and once they are done, they do not have to be completed for the rest of the year. Once you have set up your gradebook for 1 year, just to note, it does not roll over to the next year and you will have to do this again. Now that you have set up your gradebook, let's talk about assignments. As a reminder, the DEC expectations for grading are as follows. That low incidence teachers will use a district provided rubric to provide grades for ELA and math based on ELA and math checkpoints. These grades will be entered in the Power Teacher Gradebook in the test category, and there's a minimum of 2 checkpoint grades per quarter or once every 4.5 weeks. For science and social studies, the district expectation is to use the district provided rubric for grades for science and social studies based on assignments. Just like ELA and math, these grades will also be entered in Power Teacher Gradebook in the test category with a minimum of 2 checkpoint grades per quarter or one every 4.5 weeks. The goal for these assignments and grading of these assignments is that by using the rubric provided by the district, we are able to provide parents and guardians meaningful information on these required report cards to show student progress in these courses. So now that we reviewed expectations, let's talk about something that's very important to know before we look at the rubric for grading, and that is prompt level descriptors. In the rubric for grading that I'll show you in just a moment, you'll see that one of the ways in which we provide students grades in low incidence courses in ELA, math, science, and social studies is based on the level of prompting they require to complete those assessments. The DEC team, along with input from assessment and evaluation, has come up to 4 different levels of prompt descriptors, starting with full physical assistance, which requires the most assistance, all the way down to independent, which means the student's able to perform the task on their own. Please review these descriptors at any time when you have a question as to what descriptor levels should be. As always, if you have questions about if your student meets one of these, you are welcome to speak to your DEC coordinator or other staff member, but please also note that when choosing the level of descriptor for your student when grading, please choose the best descriptor to describe their overall requirement for that subject area assessment. For example, one of your low incidence students on an ELA assessment may be needing partial physical assistance to perform that ULS. However, when they get to the science assignment, they may love science, may be their favorite thing in the whole class. So when they went to do that assignment, they only required verbal gestural, since they were so excited to complete that work. Prompt level descriptors do not have to stay the same on all assignments, and please use this chart along with your best professional judgment as a certified special education teacher to choose the overall prompt level that best describes the student's work during that particular assessment. Now that we've reviewed the prompt level descriptors, let's take a look on the basics of using the rubric for grading ELA and math ULS checkpoints. On this screen, you'll see an example of the rubric that lists the prompt descriptors on the top, on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, you'll see the number of subtests. When grading an assignment, the first thing you will need to do is choose which rubric to use based on the type of assessment given. In this example, this teacher has started using this rubric for ELA and math since she gave an ELA ULS checkpoint. The first step you will do on this screen is step 1. You will choose the prompt level that the student used to complete the checkpoint. After I choose in step 1 the prompt level, I'll then move on to step 2. I'll then determine how many subtests on the checkpoint received an increased score from the baseline for a student. As a reminder, these rubrics are used for grading the post-unit ULS checkpoints, so that the y-axis, or step 2, the number of subtests with an increased score, should be based on how many subtests the students improved on from the pre to post. Once you complete step 2, you then choose step 3. You find the score for the student that should be entered for that assignment at the intersection of the number of subtests with an increased score and the prompt level used by the student. If you look at this entire chart, you will notice that the highest grade a student can get is 100% if they were independent and increased scores and had the number of subtests with an increased score of 5 or more. And the lowest score a student can ever get is a 60%. There should be no scores lower than a 60% for our low incident students in grades 3 through 12 using this rubric. For an example of how to use this chart for all LI classes, I'm now going to click and open up this document that is also linked at the bottom of this module. This is the Low Incident Report Card Examples and Grading rubric. This document is set up so that the first page includes rubrics for ELA and math, and the second page includes the rubric for science and social studies. In this document, I have also given examples of a teacher needing to provide a grade and how they would go through the grading process. So for this example for ELA that I have just listed, we have a teacher who needs to provide a grade for her ELA and math class. In order to determine the assignment grade, she will use this chart. As always, first you will find the prompt level on the x-axis, the number of subtests on the left, and find the intersection. So in this particular example with Lauren, she required a prompt level of verbal prompts, so we know her score is going to be in this column. Because Lauren required verbal prompts, her score can only be a 95, 85, 75, or 70. Her score increased from the baseline in 4 subtests, so we also know that her score is going to be on this line. So when you go to find the intersection of verbal and gestural and 4 increases, you see 85%. This would then be the grade I give on an assignment for Lauren for this quarter for ELA. This rubric is used for ELA and math based on ULS checkpoints. As a reminder, on this document, we have also listed the prompt levels in case you need to review these when choosing which column to use in this document. For our low incidence students in science and social studies, the process of grading is the same, meaning you are still expected to give 1 grade every 4.5 weeks for science and social studies entered in your Power Teacher Pro gradebook. However, if I scroll to page 2 of this rubric document, you will remember that science and social studies and low incidence classes do not have ULS checkpoints. Instead, grades for low incidence science and social studies students in grades 3 through 12 will be based on assignments that students work on in those courses. In this example, the prompt level x-axis is still the same, but on the left, instead of growth between pre and post test, we have percent accuracy on assignments. The percent accuracy on assignment columns means that for a science assignment, you will take the total number of problems correct that student got on that assignment and divide it by the total number of problems attempted or that were on that assignment. For example, in this rubric, Lauren again is needing partial physical assistance. So you note that her assistance level changed from English Language Arts to science. Because she requires partial physical assistance, we know her grade has to be in this column: 90%, 80%, 70%, or 65%. On her science assignment, she was also able to answer 8 out of 10 problems correctly. That puts her in the 75 to 84% category. When I match these two rows and columns up, that means Lauren's grade for science in the test category on this assignment should be an 80% for this quarter. For science and social studies, there are no required assignments that have to be used to give these grades. Teachers should use their discretion and resources from DEC to create these assignments and grade them for their students in grades 3 through 12. As a reminder, on this rubric, there is also another example of the prompt level descriptors at the end. So at this point, we have not yet created the assignments in PowerSchool Gradebook, but what we have done is reviewed the rubric that you will use to grade them. It is highly recommended that low incidence teachers print out this rubric document so they can have it to look at while grading students' work and choosing prompt levels, and for ELA and math, seeing how many subtest scores increased, and for science and social studies, looking at percent accuracy. Once teachers feel comfortable with this rubric, they can move on to the next video, which is going to show them how to create the assignments to enter these grades for students.